is each and every person that just attended this talk, right? If you don't get anything out of it, please come up to me. I'm happy to spend an hour coaching you guys for free, just to make sure your business grows. I don't believe in pitching. I don't believe in selling during these presentations. I know you guys already paid your tickets. My number one thing is to make sure you all learn something and you improve, with the exception of the end. We do have a booth here. You know, they charge us too. So feel free to think of questions at the end. We are going to be doing a giveaway of a flashlight because I love to create engagement and participation. In college, I was not the type of kid to take amazing notes. I hated long speeches. So I'm going to keep this a bit shorter to 30 minutes. And then in the end, it'll be more QA, because one of the great things I got out of these conferences is actually one of the reasons I'm in the restoration industry is the relationships and the people. And I know some of you guys might be walking really fast, or somebody maybe is looking down while you're at the conference, but I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people here on a good day, 9 out of 10 people here are looking to help you further your business and further your relationships. Now, my presentation is about maximizing leads with Google Ads. Now, is Google Ads the end all be all? Definitely not, right? Sean will tell you over there, right? People will tell you that Google Ads is not the only thing, but the reason I chose it is because this is actually the first thing we tell people they should try to optimize for, because it gets one of the fastest returns you can in lead generation, specifically for highly qualified leads, besides a referral. Now, everybody loves a referral. So, you know, who are we and why should you maybe give me 30 minutes today to listen? So we work with 35 restoration companies. The biggest is a 9-figure restoration company, Signal Restoration. It's a $200 million commercial restoration company. And then we've got the smaller mom and pops. And I've even tried to help out people who are just starting. And the tricky part here is when I first started in restoration, I thought everybody was kind of like, oh, you do restoration. Everybody's bio, fire, water. But you'll see in this presentation that it's all a little bit different. And I also want to give a shout out to Doug Hoffman of Normie. If you guys haven't checked them out, please do. And Mark Davis of PuraClean. If you're of PuraClean, maybe raise your hand. Right there, Ricardo. Great company. And Mark actually gave me a really warm welcome. So I like to shout him out in some of these presentations. And you guys can feel free to ask me any questions besides Google Ads here. You got my partner Hike here, who put his hands up. He can also answer the hard ones. I brought him for the hard ones, guys. You know, I'm here just for the show and the attention is what I like to say. But yeah, spoken out quite a bit of these, and I really love to get engagement. So today, focusing it back on Google Ads, right? The main thing, right, is why do they not work, right? So actually, and I like to get engaged, like I said, with the audience here. Who's actually running a successful Google ad campaign right now and is just so happy? Wow, man. You know, that's tough. So none of you guys have a successful Google Ads campaign going. Has anybody here actually ever tried a Google Ads campaign? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6. So maybe about 70% of the room hasn't even tried a campaign, right? And for the people who have tried, we're going to talk about how to make them work if you can. We're also going to talk about when they're not worth it, because they're not actually always worth it. And so some of you guys that tried, I'll take you through the metrics and actually how we determine if they're worth it or not. And then the last thing is for the people, I'm going to tailor this because I thought if somebody has a successful campaign, I can get to more advanced strategies, which it doesn't look like we're going to need to if none of you guys are running them. So yeah, we're probably going to skip that part. So why should you actually try them if none of you guys have, right? Or if 30% have and they didn't work, right? Why should you even maybe give it a second chance? They still provide some of the very best returns when done properly. You know, the second thing is they actually can be a great way to get high quality leads on your website. Now, has anybody used like ServPro or Service Direct? You guys heard of, sorry, not ServPro. Have you guys heard of Service Direct before? Yep, 33-mile radius. Yep, some of those can be really good lead generators. The problem with these, Angie's is another one, right? A lot of people hate them. Some people love them too. The problem with these is they don't know anything about your business. With Google Ads, they will go on your website, so it is a higher quality lead. It's right below a referral. And then the last thing that I'm not going to go into on this presentation is your reviews. Who here has a 5-star review system? 1, 2. So actually half the room, so that's probably about 50% of the room doesn't have a system here that they could implement to actually get more of these. Now, the 5-star reviews are very important to get. And I'm not going to, and this is not about your Google business profile, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But we always look for 5 stars with customers because that means, what do you guys think 5 stars are important? When you go to a restaurant, what do? Right? You look to see how much 5-star reviews you have. So that's actually an early tip that reviews are one of the most important and powerful things you can get. And your competitors will look at that as a factor of whether they should buy from you or not, and whether you can even charge more money. Now, the people who have tried Google Ads before, have you guys done research on how many 5-star reviews the competitors have? No. Yes, you have, Jorge. Yeah, and you have like 800, right? Like 1 billion reviews. So you're a really interesting scenario, right? And so that is a huge factor. So reputation, we like to say, is a multiplier in business. And those reviews are great for not just getting more referrals, which everybody wants more referrals, but also for actually getting more business. So we're going to go into why they fail. So one of the biggest things, like I said, is not enough reviews. So one thing you should do is type in water damage, fire damage, whatever service you actually have, and actually go on Google and start counting the competitors and see how many reviews do they have, right? Maybe also look at some of their ads and see what are they saying that you're not, right? Because if you look at your landing page on your website, right, most people don't really think about this, but you're only going to maybe spend 20 seconds going over somebody's profile, right? Everybody's interested in themselves, right? So there's a lot of keys you need to have to a good landing page. You want to have your trust badges, right? Which we call things like being IICRC certified, right? If somebody hears IICRC certified, you should highlight that, right? Those reviews, like I said, they are a multiplier. They'll be coming around a lot in this conversation here. And then there's other factors, being local, right? People want to do business with Mrs. Smith's across the street versus Walmart, right? In fact, I'll pay Jorge a little bit more if I know that he's a local business owner that I believe in versus a big box chain. So that's a big thing. And then the last thing is, I was actually talking to Hike about this as well. I was thinking maybe all 30 of my slides should just be data. But you guys might get bored about that. But ignoring data is a critical one. We actually like to meet with people minimum weekly with restoration owners to review their performance data, right? There's the famous business leader, Peter Drucker, right? Anybody know his quote? What gets measured gets managed, right? So you got to make sure you measure what's important to you. So let's say for the first time you're actually starting a good campaign. It always starts with great research. Now, sometimes if you're doing business with a company, they don't know what services you provide, you might get calls you don't want to get. Who wants to be known here as the cheapest solution, right? Well, if you don't communicate that you want to create a negative keyword on cheap or just looking, right, that's going to actually negatively impact your campaign. So you've got to have the right keywords in, and this is why we meet weekly. Now, a thing you might not know is 20% of your searches on Google are actually going to be something we call long tail. So these are things where people will not just type in, water damage in this city. They might even say water damage on 46th Street, right? Now, if you don't have 46th Street on there, right, what does that mean? Do you go 1 to 100? No, you just use something called broad match. So you actually let people utilize their own keyword searches, and that'll get you found. The next thing is this compelling ad copy, right? What makes you unique? What is the customer looking for? A lot of times when I go on the homepage of a restoration website, they'll say, I'm the masters in restoration, right? Or I'm the greatest, right? I'll tell you guys I'm the greatest too, but most of the time people won't believe you unless you actually provide something compelling to them that matters. So some people will say, we're at your door in 60 minutes or less. I know a company here actually says 59 minutes because everybody says 60, right? So what are you highlighting on your landing page and your ad copy that's going to make you unique? One of the easiest ways you can do that is you can actually think about all the complaints, and you can even interview your customers and say, hey, what are all the frequent complaints? What are you concerned about? And then you can write down all the solutions to their problems and put that smack dab in the middle of your homepage or whatever landing page you have, right? And then last but not least is local optimization. Now, it's actually kind of sad that, for instance, I've met people, for instance, that are in Miami, and they also serve Palm Beach, but they're not optimized for Palm Beach in their ads, right? Or they're not optimized for certain regions. So that's a big key there, right? You type in water damage plus city name, and then you'll be able to pop up in whatever regions you'd like. And you can also potentially exclude different areas with, that are maybe not the customers you want, that are maybe lower value if you're going for a more premium type of clients that spend more money. So another thing is ad extensions, right? Who here is doing local service ads, Google guaranteed? That is a shocking amount, maybe 30% of the people. Maybe your arms are tired from the previous talk you're at. I don't know. But only like 4 people raised their hands for local service ads, right? That's a huge key for you guys actually to quickly get one of the highest and best paid channels, right? The key to that is, as I said before, reviews, right? It's very important. And then, right, you actually want to implement additional features such as a little call button there. There's different extensions. You can emphasize certain pages and services on your website. I'll actually be showing you that later. And another key that we see is a common mistake is ad scheduling. Now, you guys who have tried to do ads, have you actually scheduled them for peak times? Did you put 24/7? Do you actually change it in the morning maybe, right? You want more ads. Later in the night, you want less because you're not trying to wake up at 2 a.m., right? So these are things you can do on your ads campaigns. You can schedule the times where you have budget, you want to spend more, and then maybe you want to spend less later on. The other thing is high intent keywords, right? So if somebody, if it's Mrs. Smith with, I guess Miss Smith is my favorite on this presentation, Mrs. Smith, right? And she says, I have a speck of mold, right? There's a black thing on the toilet, right? That might not be a keyword you want. So you want high intent keywords, right? Water damage, fire damage plus city, right? Those are great ones. I want, do you want to get rid of anything free, anything cheap? You want to get rid of those. So these are called high intent keywords, are ones where you highlight the services that you really want, right? Maybe luxury water damage. Who doesn't want a luxury job, right? You got to add those keywords in there. So next thing is call tracking. Who here actually has a call tracking system? CallRail, yep. You got, there's GHL is another one. Now, one thing some bad marketing agencies will do is they'll lump in your Google Ads performance with maybe your SEO performance with your Google Business Profile performance. And that actually doesn't let you know where you should be spending your money. So if you are spending money on Angie's, or if you are spending money on 33 Mile, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually have a unique phone number for each and every platform you're on. Because if you don't, there's not going to be a way you can measure and track where your money should be spent. Now, you can even do the same thing for fire damage or water damage, right? If you want to get more fire damage jobs and your marketing agency is saying that they're spending more money on fire damage, you can actually track them with call tracking. Another thing is conversion rate optimization. So what does that mean? And I'll show you later as well. But conversion rate optimization is just a big fancy word for making sure when people see you, they buy from you more often than not, right? If this was an online store and people are coming in, how often are they actually buying and taking the actions you need them to take? How often are they making phone calls or filling out forms, right? So what you got to do for conversion optimization is you got to measure there's tools out there like Hotjar, Mouseflow. You can utilize some of these. It's fairly straightforward. And you can actually measure to see why is one page doing better than the other. And more often than not, it's going to be one of these trust signals is what I call them. And you want to have these trust signals as easy as possible to find. So you want to maximize the bang for your buck, aka return on investment, ROI, by having tracking and by having high trust signals on your pages. And so this is an example of something called local ad extensions. You can see that the contact us page is highlighted here by Seattle Water Damage or 1-800 water damage. You can see that there's residential services they're trying to get more of. And they're using, this one's actually Seattle Water Damage, so it's a high intent keyword. And they're consistently tracking and they're analyzing every campaign. They're trying to see, well, am I going to get more people on the contact us page? Or am I going to get more people on the water damage page? One of the first things we do when we take over an account is we make sure that all the data is set up properly. And you'd be surprised, we've had some 9-figure clients where they don't have their SEO set up properly, or they don't have their ad set up properly because no one even thought to ask that. So here's some mistakes where people do, right? So the first thing is they're actually not tracking to see how many jobs are they getting from each ad campaign they're running, right? So sometimes, right, they've got all of their data mingled up. So garbage in, garbage out, right? And now, since you're not tracking anything, you can't improve anything. So you've got to, on the basic level, you've got to know how many calls am I getting? How many form fills am I getting? The second thing is the people who said that they ran ads and they wasted a bunch of money and they didn't get great returns, that might be because you got something called a bad quality score. So the way Google Ads algorithm works is the first thing they look at is how much money are you spending, because they want your money, right? The second thing they look at is how quality of an ad are you actually bidding on, and how does that actually match up to what the user is searching for. So you actually, if you have a high quality score, you can actually get a discount for your ad campaign being very valuable, because they want to make sure they show the best ads to people. That way people can say great things about the Google Ads platform. So it's a Dutch auction system, but this is one of the keys for actually optimizing your ads and saving money if you've spent a campaign and it didn't work well, right? Next thing is, I don't know if this picture is clear, but I've seen a lot of people do too much, right? Who here has tried maybe a social media campaign out? Okay, 3. The same 3 people. These are the most active people. These are your 1%ers. So if somebody's trying a social media ad campaign out, I'll say that it is good, but it is not the most optimal thing, right? This is something called a display ad. What is a display ad? A display ad is when people see something and they don't read any keywords. These are pictures you click on, right? You know, for me, maybe because they're pretty, right? For other people, maybe because they see a problem they're solving. So a lot of times when we go into Google Ads is a big word, right? It could be YouTube. It could be these pictures. It could be a search campaign. What they'll do is they'll go too fancy, too fast. So if you're going to do this by yourself, what I highly recommend is actually starting with something simple called a search campaign. And this is just text, right? So you don't have to worry about the graphic designs and the videos, right? And being the world's greatest branding person, right? All you got to do is think of the words you put on the website, and then you start with those exact words. It's called an exact match campaign. And you don't want to go fancy until you've got at least about 100 conversions. Until all the data works properly, you don't want to actually go ahead and start getting all fancy and doing social media and doing 10 different channels, and most of the time they'll get nowhere, right? What you want to do, it's like that good old Bruce Lee quote, right? I fear the man who knows how to do 1,000, or 2025, man or woman who knows how to do 1,000 kicks, that's practiced 1,000 kicks. I don't fear that person. I fear the person who has practiced one kick 1,000 times, right? So you focus on a search ad campaign first, get 100 conversions, then you can start going fancy with display ads. Then you can start using smart campaigns with AI. Now, if this was last year, something I'd say is smart campaigns are dumb. I've actually heard another speaker say that, so I'm gonna steal that from him. But one thing I'll say is nowadays with AI, it's getting a little scary where smart campaigns can actually be great, but you've got to have the proper data in the beginning. So this is the short version of why Google Ads are important. However, we're also going to go into live examples after this and then get into the QA, which is my favorite fun part. I talk a lot, but I get tired of listening to myself too sometimes. So For why Google Ads, right? Because they actually attract customers. If you type in your city plus water damage or fire damage, you know your competitors are going to most likely be spending money on them, right? You want to use high intent keywords. If you're working with a vendor and you don't have your keywords list, make sure you get that list from them and go through it to make sure you get all the jobs you need, and disqualify. You want to create a negative keywords list for the ones you don't want, right? You want to leverage something called ad extensions. Basically, if you're using local service ads, which surprisingly a lot of you guys aren't, you actually want to go ahead and have a little phone number picture, or maybe there's going to be a form fill if it's maybe a mold inspection, right? You want to utilize these to get more people engaged in your campaigns. You want to schedule during peak times, right? These are all key things. The last thing I want to actually understand from the crowd is who here, and this is a big one because we can't control it, right? Who here actually has a script that they've written up and that they practice with their team for answering the phone? So this is interesting enough, another half of the room, right? So these things actually multiply upon one another, right? So I can make the phone ring, I can't close that deal for you. So one thing you should note is who is one of the best closing people on your team. They should pick up the phone every time. And if you're not practicing, if you're not listening to their calls, then you're going to have a challenge, right? If sales and marketing are a big part of your company, you should at least have minimum of a weekly team meeting with the sales department on how we can improve these things, right? And this is actually one of the hardest parts of me actually meeting up with restoration companies. A lot of them are going to be overwhelmed, right? Because you got to take care of taxes and customers and all that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of times they're not going to be organized enough to make time to work on the business. A lot of the best restoration companies will work on the business consistently every week. So this is actually a free tool that we're providing everybody, because we aren't just a marketing agency. We also build restoration software. You can go to brainylion.com. And what it'll do is it'll actually have AI go ahead and tell you what a good page is and a bad page on your website is. So you'll see this is actually one of our awesome clients, Premier Restoration. So these are the different factors we go through that makes a website great. The first thing is a visible phone number, right? Now, not having a visible phone number is kind of like getting caught with your pants down. Like, you don't want this to happen, right? So the first thing is you want a big, clear, visible phone number. So the AI checks for that. The next thing is it asks, are these real photos or fake photos, right? I don't know about you, but I like real, right? So it'll go through the website and see, because the more stock images you put in, the more it'll note that this is something that you've got to improve on. The next thing is a visible call to action, right? Not work with the best, Vlad's the greatest. Imagine if I had Vlad's restoration, right? Work with the best, Vlad's the greatest. No, right? You want something at your door in 59 minutes or less, right? You click on, it goes to a call, right? So you want something actionable, right? Or call today to get started right away, right? So this is another factor. The next is the geographic service region. Now, a lot of people overlook the importance of being local. If you're in West Palm Beach, because that's the only place I know in Florida, right? If you're in West Palm Beach, you want to highlight that. If you're in, Sarasota, right? So that's another thing you want to highlight. You want to highlight every single city and location you're in on the page, so the customer will look and they'll be like, oh, wow, look at that. They're actually in West Palm Beach today, right? They're going to get here really fast, and they're a local business. They're not one of these really large companies who might not care about me, right? Last but not least, obviously, you want to have these testimonials. There are actually a couple more, it's not last, but these are one of the most important things is your testimonials, right? Remember those Google reviews we started on? You want to highlight them. And all of this, by the way, you shouldn't have to scroll to find, right? You want it to be as easy as possible for people to do business with you, right? And you want it to be as easy as possible to find all the reasons why you're the number one choice, right? The sixth thing is this guarantee, right? An easy one I showed is, or I talked about, is 59 minutes or less, right? Another really easy one is 24/7, but most people are using 24/7. But if you don't have 24/7, well, you're missing out, right? You got to make sure you put that on your homepage. Number 7 is these badges, right? Are you IIC RC certified? Do you have 5-star reviews on Google? Do you have a Better Business Bureau, right? Is that on the page, right? Are you a Normie member? Every single badge you can think of, you can put on there, right? And then 8, this is actually a big one. Who here has a picture of themselves, maybe with their team or their family on their website? 1, 2, 3, Jorge knows, 4, 5, 6. The rest of you guys, right, you're not going to get as much trust from people who don't have a picture of their team or their family. If you have a stock image of, Mr. AI robot on there, right, and I got a picture of a cute dog, they're going to pick the dog, right? These guys actually have a dog on there, so maybe they know a little bit, right? So you want to have a picture of your team on there. You want to have a real, authentic, quality, local feeling. Like, this is my next door neighbor, Larry, for some reason I just named him, right? They're going to be over in a jiffy. They're going to help me out. This is somebody I can trust. They're going to take care of me. So that was the Brainy Lions tool. So that's brainylion.com. We built that for free. This one we actually have on our booth. But these are the factors we look at when you should never run Google Ads in your region. So I'm going to show you a successful example and an unsuccessful example, because I've actually saved people money and told them to never run ads before. So this is a good one, right? This is my home city of Seattle, right? I typed in King County. I picked all the keywords. We actually have pre-selected keywords in here. We can check all of these off. And the next thing is, right, we type in what is the average value of your customer out of 100 people, right? How many people actually convert? So that's the top right. That's your conversion rate on your website. If you know what a conversion rate is, congratulations. You know more probably than 90% of the people about marketing at this conference, because most people don't talk about conversion rate optimization, right? So a standard conversion rate is 5%. That means out of 100 people, 5 will most likely call you. Then there's your closing rate, which if you guys don't know your closing rate, right, this is what you talk about once a week. These things are what you talk about weekly with your team, by the way, right? Out of 10 customers, how many do we close? Out of 100 people on the website, how many actually take action, right? How do we increase the average cost of our customer? So these are the factors we put in. And I will tell you, if you're in the inspection world, it's going to be really hard, because I know restorers who would love to give out inspections free all day. They'll give out free inspections just so they can get the restoration and construction jobs. So the more services you provide, the more money you can make and the more you can spend on getting customers. Now, one thing you guys might not know also is Google Ads actually becomes less effective the more